Welcome everyone to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad that you're able to join us for today's video. Now today what we're diving into is something that might be one of the most frustrating parts or experiences in your own personal growth path, and it's that moment when self-doubt starts to creep back in. Even though you've proven that you're completely capable of what you're doing, even after you've had wins, even after you've maybe overcome challenges and you've shown everyone, including yourself, what you're truly capable of. Let me paint a picture that might feel familiar to you. You know, maybe you're a parent who's navigated some rough phases with your kids. You found that rhythm, you know, you felt confident in the choices and maybe even had other parents ask for advice, you know, but then a new challenge hits and suddenly you're questioning everything again. You know, am I actually a good parent, or was I just lucky? Were those wins just lucky timing that I had? Or maybe, I don't know, you're an entrepreneur who's hit some significant milestones along the way and you've proven your business model works. You know, you've overcome obstacles that maybe seemed impossible at one time, but now you're facing that next level of growth, and that familiar voice starts coming back. You know, maybe the success you had, maybe it was a fluke, maybe it was a one-time thing, maybe I'm not actually cut out for this. Or you could fall in the bucket of maybe you're an employee who's maybe received some sort of a promotion or recognition or positive feedback that has validated you and your skills. But every time you step into maybe a bigger role or face that new challenge, that imposter syndrome whispers that, you know, you don't really belong at that level. Now, here's what I've learned through my own struggles with this and throughout working with thousands of people, that self-doubt never disappears when you achieve success. It doesn't go away. It evolves. It learns to fight against you more. It gets more sophisticated. It learns to discount the wins or amplify your fears in ways that can leave you questioning everything that you know to be true about your capabilities. It could lead towards all sorts of fears or anxieties that you may end up having. Now, like I said, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder, I'm the author of this book. It is called The Giver Method. Everything we're going to talk about is grounded from principles within this book. It came out in November. Since it came out, is an Amazon bestseller. It's had tons of 5-star reviews. Thousands of people purchased it and seen amazing results in their lives. So I highly recommend that you go get yourself a copy. I'll put a link down in the description where you can go get your own copy of it off Amazon. Like I said, it's the best $10 that you can invest in yourself. I'll put some other resources you can go get access to off of our website, thegivermethod.com, that can also help as a part of that. Now, I've lived through this sort of a cycle of self-doubt creeping back in myself, you know, achieving some significance, results, feeling confident, and then hitting like a new challenge and suddenly feeling like a beginner all over again. But what I've discovered is this, that confidence isn't something that you achieve once once and then you just keep it forever. It's not like this new superpower you've unlocked and all of a sudden you never have that self-doubt or fear again. It's something that you learn to reclaim over and over again by anchoring yourself in evidence rather than in the emotion of the moment. And so I want to really dive deep into this. Now, before we do, if you do find this valuable, please, like the video, hit subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications. I share videos every single week that I would love for you to have access to, get, your hands on, that are going to help you to discover your gifts and superpowers and create a greater impact and influence in your life. Now, at the same time, like I said, down in the description, I'll put links to givermethod.com, how you can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those places. And hey, if you have some sort of a podcast or platform or a stage or community that you're like, man, they need to hear this message, then the link below that goes to the website, you'll be able to jump on, we can connect, because I'd love to talk about what that could look like and how I could help support you in your world. So now let's dive into this. Let's not waste any more time, because the confidence that you earned is still yours. You just need to remember how to tap into it and how to access it as we walk through these different principles. I recommend you grab a piece of paper, open up a note, take down your thoughts or notes along the way so that you can go put those principles into action as quickly as possible. So our first one is this principle, and it's kind of some of the stuff I've already teed up. It's to understand the growth and doubt connection, why success triggers these new fears, and why that self-doubt shows up. I mean, really it is sometimes right after success, or it could be down the road as you start kind of reflecting back on things. The truth that catches a lot of people off guard is, like, you've got that moment, you've got those times where you've leveled up as a parent or a business owner or a professional, and your old self-doubt tends to sneak back in. You think success would silence the voice, but it doesn't. I mean, in fact, like, success can actually stir it up even more. Every time that you grow, you leave the familiar behind, the things that you've been a part of. You just proved that you're capable of this new thing, but then the challenge gets a little bigger. The stakes are a little higher, and your brain kicks into that high alert of like, wait, we're in a new place. I don't know. Is this right for me? Are we in the right place? And the problem is it reads this territory almost like danger. You know, that promotion, it feels like a risk. You know, kids entering a new phase of life feels like maybe you're starting over. Launching something new in your business, like that's cued your voice, like of like, you know, who are you to be doing something like this? Like our brains, they're trying to protect us. You know, what makes it harder is that, you know, your brain is playing tricks on you. It tends to like minimize wins by amplifying struggles. It says like, you know, hey, when you know something goes well, it was luck. You know, if something feels shaky, it must be that there's a big problem that we need to go take care of. I don't know if those hit home or resonate with you, but that's not the truth. That's your brain's outdated wiring and programming trying to make sense of something new and stretching beyond what it's currently capable of. And so here's how we can start to work through this, okay? You start with this like thing, basically, when you're in any sort of a growth phase, you want to have like a check-in that you're doing. And the next time when doubt shows up, ask yourself like, you know, what am I stepping into that's new? What about this feels maybe uncertain or unfamiliar? Often just recognizing that you're in a season of change and growth and expansion is enough to like calm the noise that could be happening in your brain. It shifts the narrative from like, you know, I'm not ready to like, hey, you know what, I'm growing, and growth, you know, is supposed to feel a little unsteady at times. And then you can map out like a timeline of your own personal growth where you look back, let's say over the last 3 to 5 years, you know, what new, you know, changes or seasons did you come from? Like what have you gone through at home, at work, or in your business? Write down how you felt as you transition through those different seasons of life, you know, year after year. You know, if you start to look for it and actually see how you showed up and what things how emotionally that felt to you, you're probably going to notice some patterns that every time that you felt unsure, you know, you're still figuring it out. Like you adapted, like you stretched, you made it through whatever that thing is. It's not just a nice memory, it's data, you know, it's your proof. And that's what we're going to be grounding a lot of this in, is like, okay, well, as I transitioned to these new seasons, like, yeah, there was uncertain. I didn't know what we were doing, but we figured it out. And you're just starts to program your brain to realize that there's good things can come from when you're going through those seasons of growth. Now, the way you fix like, you know, your brain and it discounting your wins is like you look where, you know, create the credit where credit is due, you know, and this is a practice where you catch yourself saying like, if it's like, you know, oh, that was just luck, you know, press pause. Ask yourself like, okay, well, what did I bring to the table that made that outcome possible even? And what choices did I make? What effort did I put in? What did I do? Like, how did I change who I was to align with that? Like, make it a habit to think about this and then write it down. You know, this is how you're going to, you know, teach your brain to stop skipping over the successes like it was an accident. We need to live in them and celebrate them and you know, let them marinate for a little bit, because that tells our brain that those are good things we're going after. You know, you have to see doubt for what it really is. It's just a sign that you're stretching into something new. You're not slipping backwards in any way. And when you understand self-doubt as a normal response to growth, like, it's not a red flag. It's not showing you that you're unqualified. You're going to stop backing away from the edge. You're going to start feeling more ready, and you're going to start trusting that the discomfort is a part of becoming who it is that you're meant to be. And really importantly, that you stop beating yourself up about feeling maybe offset or wobbly, or, you know, you want to show yourself some grace in the middle of that change, you know, right there where it's at. And that's how the confidence starts to be reclaimed. And that leads us into the second one, which, like I said, a lot of this grounds that the rest of the principles we're going to talk about. The second one, which is about, you know, mastering attribution accuracy. So you want to, once again, claiming the credit of your real contributions. Don't give luck all the credit. You know, want to talk about how you can own what you've actually played, like what played into those wins. And, you know, how many times have you crushed something? You know, you absolutely nail it, and then you turn around and said like, you know, oh, I don't know, it was just luck, or hey, we just figured out, it was because so-and-so was involved. It wasn't a big deal. It's just, you know, something that was there. Meanwhile, if something doesn't go plan, your brain lights up all the warning signs and it's screaming at you like, see, you weren't good enough. See, you're not there yet. You're not ready. You know, it like that right there, it's going to be one of the biggest confidence traps for, you know, anyone who considers himself or is trying to become a high achiever, busy parents, entrepreneurs, professionals. Like, we chalk up the wins to luck and the losses to who we are, and it slowly erodes the ability for us to trust ourselves, you know. And there's a name for it, you know. Psychologists, they call it an attribution error, you know, and it's sneaky. Over time, this habit builds this internal narrative. You know, my failures are personal, and my, you know, but my success is like, oh, probably just coincidence, right? Like, if that ever sounds familiar, then I want you to really take this part home. I want you to hear this, that like, it's not humility. You that's just a distorted view of your track record. It's time to start giving yourself the accurate credit, not that it's inflated praise in any way, but real grounded acknowledgement of what you did to make those things happen. Like, let me be clear, this isn't about pretending that you're perfect or taking credit for things that you weren't doing, but it's about like actually recognizing the truth of your contribution, the decisions you made, the attitude you held through it, the hard conversations you didn't avoid, the skills that you brought to the table when you were, maybe scared or uncertain. That's what we're after. So what you want to do is you want to start by digging up recent wins. And so, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to become like, the detectives around our success? Pick your 3 most recent like accomplishments, big or routine, and for each one, write down like what you actually did to make it happen. What skill did you lean on? What problem did you solve? What tough thing did you show up for even when you didn't feel ready? Don't just list like tasks. Like, include like the mindset that you had, your follow through, your ability to navigate the stress, how that impacted others around you. Then like only then you can acknowledge like all the external pieces. Like, support matters, timing does play a role, but make sure that you're not erasing your own fingerprints from the outcome that you created. You can also run a check-in, like balance, like where you're balancing the assessment of what you're doing. When something goes well, ask like, well, what part of this was me? When something doesn't go well, instead of like spiraling, like ask yourself like, okay, well, what was actually what do I need to own as a part of that? What wasn't my part of that? This sort of split second like reframing can really change things for you. You start learning from your mistakes without turning them into these personal identity statements or attacks on yourself. And you start celebrating the wins without brushing them off like they're flukes. And then lastly, build in some sort of a rhythm, where you can recognize, the contribution. Put that like contribution recognition as a practice you're doing, where maybe by the end of the week, you start jotting down a few things you did really well, things that mattered, things that you might have normally ignored. Maybe you held boundary with a client. Maybe you stayed calm when your kids were losing it. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting, when your voice, stays silent normally. Like, those count way more than you can possibly think of when it comes to programming our brains to look at this the way we want to. You're training your brain to recognize consistency, not just the fireworks that are popping. When you stop handing all the credit to luck, or to some other thing, or all the negatives to yourself, like when you start just to realize like how often you show up and how often you chose growth, how many times you created outcomes you're proud of, like this attribution accuracy isn't about ego. It's just like I'm aligning myself to what I actually did to make that thing happen. I'm building value in the things that I made happen so I could create value for other people when I do that. It builds self-trust that, doesn't get blown around every, hard day or unexpected, win. It grounds your confidence in the real data around you. And it's the kind of confidence that shows up in how you lead and how you parent and how you pursue your purpose. It's not loud. It is steady, and it makes a huge impact. It gives you clarity to step into the next challenge, knowing that, hey, you've done this before and you can do it again. Now, the third principle is we want to build the evidence system. So we've talked about like reflecting on it and starting to think through, like, let's start building as it's happening, the evidence system, create the vault, or the emergency confidence kit, however you want to look at it, like the evidence system that you can actually rely on. Because let's be honest, most of us are sitting on a gold mine of wins and growth and resilience that we've completely forgotten about. Or worse, we've explained them away in some way. And so this is about doing something most people never think to do. It's intentionally building the system that collects stories. It reminds you of what you're capable of. It collects what you've done, because what's really going on is your brain just isn't great at remembering your wins, especially in the moment where it's trying to trigger that negative feeling, And so our brains have this thing, I don't know if you've heard, it's called negative bias, where it's actually wired to highlight the harder parts of things, the hard stuff. The one bad week, it'll scream that louder than the 5 months of amazing progress you made. And so when doubt hits, most people don't stand a chance unless they've done the work to bank the evidence that they need to go forward. That's why you create this idea of like, what's my proof for my evidence bank or whatever. The first part of this, you want to go back and find the stuff that you've already done. We've talked about doing some exercise for that, but we're going to dive deeper into it. How can I go find the stuff from my past? And the second, how do I, make it really easy to collect them moving forward, so that when I need to tap into that, bank of confidence, it's easy for me to go do, and it's easy for me to keep adding things over time, especially if something tries to blindside, fear or doubt tries to blindside me at some point. And so start by doing, like, let's just, once again, if you just look at even the past year, take a look at this week, and then go backwards 12 months. Scroll through your calendar, look at old emails that you received, like check for texts or photos, journals, anything that, whatever you've got, like just start going through and look for any moments where you handled a tough situation, solved the problem, got positive feedback, stayed patient when it was hard, or made something better. You showed up the way you wanted to show up, right? Don't just focus on the big stuff. Like, ordinary wins will completely count, and write down what happened. What part you played to make that thing happen. And then next you sort those into like categories, so you could create some sort of a chart or a grid and use buckets like, okay, well, these are leadership wins or parenting wins, relationship moments, creativity or problem solving. These are bounce backs from setbacks. This is when I was helping others. And then like look for what are your maybe 3 examples per category. Seeing your strength across multiple areas reinforces confidence that you don't live in one lane. It shows up in a lot of ways. And then you take your top 3 to 5 examples, the ones that remind you that, what you're actually made of, and turn them into those confidence anchors for yourself. Like, these are going to be the stories, the screenshots, the emails, the reminders that you grab in the seconds when your brain starts lying to you. And you put them in a folder on your phone, you print them, you put them on a wall, you record yourself telling the story in a voice memo, whatever it takes. And then once again, keep them current. Weekly confidence receipts. Like, go back through your week every single week and look for like, well, where did I show up this week with, confidence or kindness or courage or in the way I wanted to show up, and write them down and keep adding them to your proof bank. This is going to completely shift how you experience your own capabilities over time, because the truth is that your confidence isn't something that just you magically feel. It's something that you prove to yourself over time. It's a muscle you build. This system turns that confidence into something like more visible and organized and accessible, and because it matters, because when that self-doubt creeps in, your emotions are going to lie to you. You can go to your proof bank. It won't lie to you. It's built with real evidence. It's going to help you to stop relying on the feelings that you're feeling, the fleeting feelings that are coming in, and start making decisions based on like the factual data from your past. It's not about just feeling better. It's about trusting yourself enough to take the next step, especially when it counts the most. Now, we're a little more than halfway there through our principles and ideas, and so I'd love, what are your thoughts? What are your takeaways so far? Feel free to leave a comment, as we go. At the same time, maybe jot down the names of some people you think might need to hear this. And so the fourth principle is about recognizing your, reliable strength. You want to see the patterns of success and recovery, because when you have those go-to strengths, you're able to spot patterns that prove that you were built for this. We spend so much time obsessing over whether we're good enough for the next challenge, that we forget to ask the better question of well, what has my life already shown me I can handle? So this is about uncovering the recurring strengths that you've carried through different seasons of your life, so the big wins. Stop treating every new challenge like it's your first rodeo. And these strengths, these are the things that in the book, The Giver Method, that lead towards becoming your gifts and superpowers that help you to create more impact and value in other people's lives. Now, the big thing is that confidence isn't just about believing in yourself in the moment. It's about learning how to recognize those patterns. What type of problems are you solving? What situations do you rise to meet again and again? What's your personal, recovery rhythm when things feel like they're falling apart? Most of us, have these reliable strengths baked into who we are. They're just in you. I guarantee that they're there. If you need help finding them, the book will help you. But we just haven't slowed down enough to name what these things are. One of the most overlooked confidence builders that's out there is your ability to how do I bounce back? Not just a highlight reel of stuff, but the quiet recoveries I have. When you figured it out on the fly, you cleaned up the mess, you found your footing after getting knocked off course. These are recovery patterns that you want to lean into that are grounded in your strengths that you have. So what you want to do is start by pattern spotting, these strengths as you go. So take maybe some time, set some time aside today, and look at the past few years and jot down those wins, major challenges. What kind of stuff do I consistently handle well? What environments do I bring out my best? What strengths show up on repeat, especially when things get hard? And you're looking for 3 to 5 patterns that show up across different parts of your life. And then, like, once again, let's look for those skills, like looking for the signature. Maybe you map it out, where you don't stop at the surface level, like I'm good with people. Like you get really specific, like I'm good at calming really tense situations. Or I'm the one that people will come to when they need like a plan fast and organized. Like whatever, dig into your actual experiences and get really specific in what those things are. Why are people coming to you? What are they thanking you for? What are those things that you're brushing off because you're like, oh, it's just so second nature to me? But it's not second nature to everybody. And then start to think about the bounce back inventory you have. Once again, those, think through some of the like tough moments you've had, maybe 5 to 10 moments that are really tough that you faced when you got knocked down. How did you get back up? What tools did you use? What mindset shifts? What support systems did you lean on? And write those down. Not just what happened, but what you did to recover. Like, because this can start becoming a blueprint that you're going to use as some of the strongest proof that you can trust yourself because you've made it through these challenges. And then, your patterns, like when you use those proactively, then you can like have a challenge forecast filter. Or anytime you're stepping into something new, you can be like, well, what strengths have helped me through similar things before? What's my recovery pattern if things get messy? You just already have those things planned out. It helps you just attack them so much cleaner. When you know these patterns, you stop reinventing the wheel every single time life throws something new at you and that doubt creeps in. You develop what researchers call like a broader like self-efficiency, and that belief in your ability to figure things out even when things are hard. That's what separates people who get stuck from the people who continue to grow. Because when doubt creeps in, you won't just hope you can handle it better. You're going to remember that you already have it, and you're going to pull out these things and start to use them and use them to build those strengths and to recover faster. And then, of course, the 5th principle is practicing future self-confidence, and how you use that as like the forecast anchor for yourself. You want to access the wisdom from your proven track record. Ask, this is a great exercise and way to ask your future self for advice, how you tap into the wisdom of the version of you who's already figured it out, even though right now you haven't. Something I started doing, in some of the toughest seasons of life, and it started to change everything as I began to like look for advice from my future self. Not some perfect polished version of me, just a version of me that's maybe a year down the road. Who's already worked through this mess that I'm currently working on. Like that's a version of you that they exist, and they've got insight right now they can give you. And so when you start to look for this future self, like confidence anchoring, it's not about wishful thinking or pretending everything's fine. It's about calling on the part of you who already knows how the story's going to turn out. The version of you who kept going, who figured things out, who came out wiser on the other side. The reason it works is because that version of you, like it's built on everything that you've already lived through. All of your resilience, your growth, your decision-making stacked, all those strengths stacked. And so oftentimes people get so lost in the moment of I can't do this, or there's the fear, there's the thing setting them apart. That's like, yeah, in a year from now, it's not like you're going to be this master wizard where you've solved everything in this perfect world. It's like you're still the same person you are today, just a little bit further along. But you're going to rely on stuff that happened not just in the last year. You're going to rely on stuff from your past, and we forget to rely on that stuff. At the same time, it helps us think through like, well, what's the path I would go through to get there? When you're stuck in the middle of something, that's hard, your brain zooms in on the reasons why it's going to fall apart. But when you step into a future self, even for a few minutes, you tap into more clarity and capability and calm that are available to you because you've already experienced these things. You just need a different vantage point is where you're looking at it. And so what you want to do for this is like the next time that you're facing, something is feeling overwhelming or whatever, do this future you check-in. Sit somewhere quiet, close your eyes and picture yourself a year from now looking back on this exact moment. And I mean, honestly, you're going to be like, oh, well, that was really funny that I was gotten so overwhelmed and I had that doubt creeping in. That's so silly, Look back on this moment and imagine the version of you that has figured it out, that worked through the mess, navigated all the roadblocks, and came out stronger. And then ask yourself, well, what helped me get through this? What would I want the current me to know, as a part of that? Like, how did I navigate through all of this? What strengths, gifts, superpowers did I use that I already have that, I was able to use to navigate through that? And then jot down whatever comes to mind. And you can also stack that with, looking at like this wisdom bridge where before talking, and trying to go find that future version of yourself. Like, remind yourself of the past you. Like I said, we get so lost in the moment of the fear, the doubt, the overwhelm, that we don't even think about all the experiences we've already had and how we've gotten through that. When was the last time that you felt like you feel now? How did you, what did you do? How did you move through it? Connect the dots. Like, your past, it has receipts, and then your future you is going to help you fill in the rest. And so it's just a mental shift that connects past evidence with this future insight, and it gives who you are right now in the moment something to stand on. You can build out even more by, once again, these timelines are so impactful when you create like a confidence timeline, where if you sketch out a line of the last 5 to 10 years and mark down the moments when things felt hard, but you kept going. Note the specific strengths that showed up, and then fast forward, add this current challenge to the timeline, then imagine the growth that's on the other side, seeing yourself as someone who's been through this hard time, and grown because of it. This can completely reframe and change how you experience that doubt today and move past it. Self-doubt loves to trap you in the right now and forget about your past and forget about where you're going in your future. Your future self, like, they're going to remind you that you've never been stuck. You're not stuck forever. They know your patterns of progress. They know that you've got all this proof that you're built on, that you already live on these experiences, and that's what brings your gifts and superpowers out so much more. This is about certainty. It's just about trust. You don't have to know exactly how it all works out. You just need to remember that you've done it before. You've found ways forward in hard times, and you've grown, and you give yourself credit for that. The future you isn't a fantasy. It's like a reflection of growth and motion and where you're wanting to get to. They're just waiting to remind you what you're truly capable of. Now, if I want to leave you with something that I wish someone had told me when I was stuck in sort of these spirals of doubt, staring down the kind of growth that felt way bigger than me. Like, the voice in your head, the one's asking you, like, why do you think you can do this? Who do you think you are? It doesn't show up because you're not qualified in any way. It is showing up because you're stepping into something new. Doubt doesn't mean you're not capable. It just usually means that you're stretching and growing. And the truth is, all those wins you've chalked up to luck or timing or anything like that, like, those are actually proof that you've got way more than the fear wants you to believe. It's just trying to discredit all of it for you. We walk through these different practical ways that you can get back to the truth that's in you and pull from actual life, your actual gifts, and push through with actual growth. This isn't like motivational fluff in any sort of a way. It's not empty hype. It's grounded in these repeatable ways. You can access confidence that's already yours. Now, here's what I really want you to walk away with. Confidence isn't something, like, it's not that permanent state that you just unlock and keep forever. It's the skill, it's a muscle that you have to build by choosing to remember what's real about you, especially when your emotions are trying to tell you a different story. So what I want you to do next is I want you to find a moment, one moment, just one, where you showed up with strength. Leading your team through a rough patch, or staying calm when your kids needed you the most, or launching something messy but meaningful. Like, write it down, be specific. That's your first deposit into that proof bank, that confidence bank that you're going to tap into. And it's where the real rebuild begins. You don't have to feel 100% confident to take action. You just need to trust that you already have a track record. It already says what it needs to say about you. You can do this, because confidence isn't about waiting for the fear to go away. It's about, learning to move through it with the different receipts that you already have in your hand as a part of that. Now, if you did want to dive deeper into this, if you wanted to dive deeper in figuring out your natural gifts, the kind of evidence-based confidence that not just showing up as yourself for the people, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And once again, that's where you're going to go down the description, get yourself a copy of The Giver Method. It's not just a book, it's the guide for building life that aligns your gifts, your impact, relationship with what matters most. Once again, the link in the description. You go get it on Amazon. You check out all the resources at thegivermethod.com. And if you've got that platform, a podcast community or business stage, whatever, where these kind of conversations would land and really connect with people, then let's touch base. Go down the description so we can talk about what that could look like. I'd love to talk to people about how we can bring the message to their people, because confidence isn't something any one of us has lost. It's something that you've already earned, and you're so much closer than you think to where you're going. You just need to learn to tap into the confidence to help push you through. So start listening to your own story. It's got plenty to say. It's about who you really are. Leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like the video, share, subscribe, all those things. Ring the bell. Check us out on all the other social medias or at thegivermethod.com, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Have a good one.